Thank you. Thank you so much. So, who's having fun at Web Summit so far? Show of hands. Let's see, everybody's still alive. Cool, great. Us too. So I wanted to talk to you guys because I think that you had very interesting talks now about growth. And I think what a lot of people are very interested in is how to grow fast, and how to grow at a hyper rate, which is very difficult, right? I'm just throwing it out there, what is one key thing that was unexpected to you as you were growing your businesses that you learned along the way? Something unexpected.
Yeah, so for us, one of the things that was quite unexpected as we were growing the business was the cultural impact of the senior leaders we bring into the business. How does that affect the people in the business who'd been around for quite some time? So the generalist versus specialist that I talked about in my presentation, managing that dynamic and its impact on the culture for us was something that we had to kind of work hard to ensure that it benefited everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That ability to find the right leadership as you go. Early days, it's all in your control. You can know everything that's happening. When you have a 10-person team, it's quite easy to coordinate with everyone, to know the priorities, to keep people aligned. When you start hitting 50, 60, 100, all of a sudden there needs to be hierarchy. As an engineer, process used to be a dirty word, but it turns out it's a valuable tool for ensuring the company's on the same page.
Right, going in the same direction. One thing I experienced, and by the way, I learned from time I spent in Silicon Valley, is when you start your company, you have people doing a lot of different things. And you have, for example, the chief of sales also doing some biz dev and some marketing when needed, and some people in products, they help for marketing or sales. But when you grow, what the investor is going to wait for you is to be structured, to have very, very specific job description, so that at the end of the day, when you want to scale up, you exactly know who is doing what and how to grow and who to hire for doing what. That's something we learned.
Yeah, I'll build on that. And I shared this earlier, that we take a very different approach to hiring. I think early days, people that you want to hire don't necessarily want to come to work for you, and so hiring is very challenging because you're not yet sort of a known brand or a big company, and so I think you have to be very aggressive with hiring. And I said earlier, this idea of hire slow, fire fast, early days doesn't really work. You just have to hire fast. We take an approach with hiring where we don't say, here are the 5 most important positions to go hire for now, and then have those positions stay open for 6 months while we try to find the right people. We make a list of, 30 or 40 positions that we need right now. We write a job description, we're sort of clear on what we need, but then we have a pool of money, and it's sort of, I described it earlier, like Fight Club, and it's like Hire Club, and anybody that's hiring they're racing to fill those roles as quickly as fast as possible before the money runs out, because I think if you create that urgency around hiring early days, you're gonna unlock growth opportunities if the roles are growth oriented that allow you to grow much faster than being sort of precious with hiring.
And Jill, actually, just to kind of stay on that, the idea of hiring being so critical towards growth, I think we all know that it's important if you are interested in growing quickly. And one thing that's interesting to me is there's such a big difference between getting the right person and the wrong person. And at least you guys have identified, show people the door if necessary. Because I'm just wondering for the rest of you, what have you noticed about having the wrong person versus the right person in specific roles as you're trying to grow? How big of a difference does that make?
Yeah, so having the wrong person obviously has an impact much worse than you can ever imagine, and so you gotta make sure that you show that wrong person the door as quickly as possible, in a nice way, explaining the situation, and having the right person. You got to wait to get the right, if you need to wait to get the right person, wait to get the right person, because they have a huge multiplier effect on your business. They have an exponential effect on the business, not a linear effect. So we would wait for the right person, and we've made mistakes, like I know every entrepreneur says, and everybody reads, but they still do it. of showing the wrong person the door a bit too late. I wish we did that early. So that'd be kind of what my takeaway from this.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like, it's often better to not have somebody than it is to have the wrong person. But it's a temptation that you face. You need some help. Sometimes the wrong person gets in the door and they're providing value. You want to treat them fairly. You don't want to be unjust. And so you try to make it work, or you try to coach them to try to help them grow. And sometimes you're fighting against your gut. And early on, you're calibrating what your gut is and when the right time to part ways. And almost every time that someone has parted ways, in retrospect, I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd trusted my gut.
Yeah, the same. And for me, it's not the right person, universally. It's the right person for your company at that moment. And when you grow fast, there is something that it's very hard to keep, is the culture. But it's very important for your company because you created your company with a culture. And if sometimes you hire the wrong person just because the person doesn't have the same value. It's not that their values are bad, it's just they're not the same. And following exactly what you said, for some people, I had a gut feeling that it was not a good person, but everybody agreed on them. And at the moment, I didn't want to say no. But it has been, we had a lot of problems with that. And now I decided to follow my gut feeling. And when we hire, we also check the values. We check that people are aligned with our values.
Yeah, and I just, I'll sort of make the point again. I think it's a good question. What do you do if somebody's not working, right? And you need to make a decision quickly and move them along in a respectful way. Treat people as well on the way out as you do on the way in. But don't build a culture that is paralyzed by fear of making the wrong hiring decision. I think that is very, very dangerous for early stage companies. I have a slightly different perspective that even if you hire a couple wrong people, it's much more detrimental that you miss the great people and the difference makers. So I'd say err on sort of the risk-taking side and go for it, and then just course correct when you get it wrong.
And I think another thing that's important when we're talking about hypergrowth is identifying when to take money and when not to. That's something that I think some people oversimplify and say, of course you can grow faster if you've got money. The more the merrier, right? And inevitably, sometimes people find out that that's not the case. So how did you decide, and how have you decided in the past whether or not to take money, whether or not bootstrapping was the right thing to do for your model?
Well, we have been thinking of that, in many situations. At the end of the day, from our experience, I don't claim that I have access to any truth. It's just the experience. The biggest risk you face is running out of cash, right? It's important not to be too much diluted. It's important, whatever. But the big risk is to run out of cash. So my recommendation is, if you have an opportunity to raise money, if there is money, take the money. Don't run, but take the money, right? That's our experience.
I was telling this story earlier. When I was an engineer at Netflix, I had an opportunity to speak at a conference. I was in the lobby of that conference, and unbeknownst to me, I got in a debate with a VC, and I told him, "Nah, I'm going to bootstrap. I don't want to give away all my company. I want to be thoughtful about it. I'm going to save up some money, and then I'm going to kick it off myself." And we got into this discussion, and there were some points I hadn't given enough thought to. I have a family. I live in the Bay Area. It's expensive. And for me to put my family in financial risk to start the company wasn't a prudent decision. And then the nice thing I've learned after that is that good investors and good board members are actually a great value add. They've played this game. They've seen a lot of companies go through it. And their advice, while not always correct for you, in general is very valuable to hear.
So actually, we were having this conversation, and from our standpoint, Perkbox, before it became Perkbox, had a series of pivots. And actually, I believe the reason we succeeded on those pivots and through a lot of hardship was because we had actually very little capital that we raised originally. And that just made us very, very disciplined. It made us very, very customer-centric. And it ensured that we were actually driving revenue from customers and then we raised capital, and we raised capital from some great investors. And as you said, you got to have the right investors that have a multiplier effect on your business. So, our team's view, our exec team's view, is that raising capital, again, it depends on the nature of the business, what kind of, whether it's B2C, B2B, heavily R&D, AI, depends on the nature of the business. But our view is that whatever you do should have a multiplier effect on the business when you raise capital. It's either in getting the right investors that have the multiplier effect, or you have proven the model to a certain extent where when you put in the capital, you will have a multiplier effect. And it just gets you very, very disciplined when you don't have a ton of money, to splash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think also another thing that everybody's kind of touching on is, sure, money is great, but the mentorship that you're getting when you bring in the right partner, that's often critical as well. And I'm wondering, even independently of investors, how important has it been to find those outside mentors to enable you to grow from your experiences?
So
yeah, I mean,
do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Sure, and maybe sort of building on the last question. So prior to Tomorrow Melon, I was with a business that didn't raise any venture money, and we took that business to 500 million in revenue, which is clearly an achievement. But that company was an e-commerce business in 1997. So I think timing really matters when you consider like whether you should raise money or not. Obvious reasons why in 1997 there wasn't a race to sell product online the way there is today. And along that same sort of note, in 1997 there wasn't a lot of people that we could look to for advice and expertise on how to scale an online business. Today, launching Tomorrow Melon, one, we have to go really fast, selling shoes online. While we have some advantages, clearly, a lot of people could do it and could do it well. And so it's all about speed to market and speed to innovation. And similarly, we need really smart people to sort of push us and guide us, particularly given we're entrepreneurs, both of us, Tamara as well, having not raised money to build Jimmy Choo, where the environment's different and people are taking in capital to grow fast. So our investors in particular have been instrumental. I do not think we would be growing at the rate we are if they hadn't given us the capital to make smart investments and sort of the perspective on how aggressive you need to be in sort of the market that we're playing in today. So I like the push from our investors.
We have extraordinary mentors in our company, people helping independent board members and that. So it's extremely useful. The more advice you can have from people knowing the game, having played the game, raising money, talking to customers, signing big contracts, it's extremely important. But at the end of the day, you make the decision. And that's the very important thing. They don't make the decision. This is your company, you make the decision.
One thing I found that surprised me a little bit in bridging the gap, when you're taking money from an investor, you should do due diligence. They're doing due diligence on you. They're looking into who you are, where you've been. They're talking to your peers. You should do the same to them. One of the hidden gems there is you often get introduced to other CEOs that are further along. And what's great, you might think that you're going to get a biased view because the introduction was made through an investor. But the truth is, as founders, there's this special bond that we're all going through this and we've all felt this pain. And so you get very honest, frank conversations. And I found half those calls are about the investors and the other half are just great advice about building a business and the struggles you go through at the different stages.
I'd like to take a different tack on this. So one of the things that we encourage inside the business is this culture of curiosity and continuous learning. And as kind of the top management, we need to be displaying that to our team. We need to be following what we preach. So one of the things that our exec team does is that go on that journey of continuous learning. There's what happens when you lead a company, you get so engrossed in everything that's going on, you forget about what's going on outside. So we've always relied on mentors who we continuously learn from and continuously grow, because the best information is in people's heads. It's not documented, it's not on slides, it's not on SlideShare, it's not everywhere. So you got to really talk to people and learn from the best and be continuously learning, because we expect our team to do the same. And it's not about just mentorship for us from investors, non-investors, but it's for your team members. We encourage them, our leaders, hey, go find some mentors who can, who can help you succeed in your career and your growth in the company.
And speaking of learning from the best, thank you guys so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thanks.